to the representative of Ghana.
Madam President, at the outset, let me thank you and the delegation of Malta for convening this meeting on threats to international peace and security caused by terrorist acts. We take note of the Secretary General's report and thank Under-Secretary General Vladimir Voronkov and Acting Executive Director Mr. Wen Choncheng, as well as Ms. Francisca Praxel, Director of Multilateral Relations of the Global Center on Cooperative Security, for their useful perspective on the subject. Regrettably, the Secretary General's report confirms our fears of the increasing threat posed by ISIL Daesh and its affiliates to international peace and security as seen in the second half of the year, which exacerbated across conflict zones and their neighboring countries, despite national and global attempts to bring it under control. Another grim reality that confronts us, as the report warns, is the convergence of global threats, in particular the intricate and intertwined connection between armed conflict, terrorist attacks, and transnational organized crime. This reality must not be allowed to fester, as it aggravates an already dire situation for humanity. We are therefore gravely concerned about the spread and incidence of terrorist attacks by Daesh and its affiliates across the African continent, with its devastating consequences. We are particularly concerned that in West Africa and the Sahel, Daesh and Al-Qaeda affiliates, Islamic State in the Greater Sahara, has intensified its violent activities since the appointment of their new leader, Abba al-Sahrawi, in May 2022, and continue to take advantage of intercommunal and social tensions to further their agenda. The situation in the Sahel in particular has deteriorated to the point where several countries are contending with terrorist groups who, in some cases, are fighting government forces as well as one another for territorial supremacy and control of resources. This troubling situation threatens peace, stability, and security throughout the continent. As noted by DSRSG Giovanni Biha of UNOWAS in her recent briefing to the Council, the activities carried out by armed groups, violent extremists, and criminal networks resulted in the closure of more than 10,000 schools, which had an impact on the lives of millions of children, as well as around 7,000 health centers. As she stated, quote, "The Central Sahel continues to face multi-dimensional challenges, unprecedented levels of security and humanitarian challenges, social political instability, further compounded by the impact of climate change and food insecurity, which was exacerbated by the conflict in Ukraine," unquote. In recent weeks, the brutality perpetrated by terrorist groups against innocent populations in Burkina Faso has compelled thousands to flee to neighboring countries, including Ghana. The displacement of our neighboring brothers and sisters reflect the fragile nature of the situation in the Sahel and the immense challenges we collectively face in helping them to develop resilience through measures towards stabilization and recovery. We believe that we should not allow a few disgruntled elements in our societies to put the lives of the many in danger. We must, through enhanced international solidarity, demonstrate that we have the numbers and the resources to effectively confront this negative canker. Madam President, the act of terrorism is a slap in the face of all of humanity. Not only does it constitute an attack against innocent lives, our economies, and our infrastructure, but it also symbolizes a complete onslaught against our common ideals and the dignity of every person. No country has an exemption. For Ghana, we strongly believe that preventing and countering terrorism requires an enhanced global mobilization and a multi-dimensional approach. It is in this context that I wish to highlight the following 4 points. First, Ghana stresses the importance of agreeing upon a universal definition of the crime of terrorism. Such a definition should be grounded in the United Nations Charter and international law and should be devoid of any confusion. Within the current context of the global fight against terrorism, the absence of a suitable universal definition poses a challenge and subjects the question to different agenda, purposes, or biases. Second, in the light of the significant incidence of terrorism on the African continent, The situation requires both the coordination and strengthening of the capacities of regional countries on the basis of the principle of ownership. We value our engagements with CTED, UNOCT, and UNODC, and encourage their ongoing cooperation and support. However, many African countries still require technical support to build up their capabilities, especially in the realm of new and emerging technologies. As a result, we advocate for increased funding to improve the capacity of countries in our common battle against terrorism. Third, at the continental level, Ghana is making every effort to improve coordination and cooperation with countries under the African Union's counterterrorism framework, strengthening the ties between the United Nations and ongoing counterinsurgency operations conducted by regional organizations based on normative frameworks like the African Union's and the Economic Community of West African States counterterrorism policy is an important priority for Ghana. At the regional level, Ghana has developed strong cooperation with its neighboring countries in key areas related to the fight against terrorism. This has primarily been accomplished through the sharing of information and intelligence within the ambit of the Accra Initiative. As one of the leading nations against terrorism in West Africa, Ghana will continue to position the initiative to make significant contributions to the stability and security of the region, including through securing our joint borders and staging joint exercises as part of our counterterrorism policy. Fourth, Ghana places strong focus on the importance of prevention as the primary objective that needs to be pursued in countering terrorism. Ghana strongly believes that increased investments in tackling the ideological, political, economic, and social underpinnings of terrorism are necessary in order to effectively prevent and combat terrorism. Equally vital is the development of a consistent political approach based on prevention. We encourage the adoption of a whole-of-society approach by involving the private sector and civil society groups in resolving the underlying drivers, and believe this can help reduce the vulnerability of the youth groups to radicalization through the opening up of further opportunities for them. It is also important to adopt a gender-sensitive approach in countering terrorism, as one of our briefers here today also underscored. In conclusion, Ghana thanks the Counterterrorism Committee, Executive Directorate, the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, and the United Nations Office on Counterterrorism for their support in the fight against terrorism. In this regard, we are grateful for the support we have received from allies in our region in our effort to confront terrorists and violent extremists head-on. However, this Council has not stepped up fully to its responsibility in the same manner that it has responded to traditional threats to international peace and security. In this context, we warmly welcome the upcoming UNOCT Counterterrorism Summit in Abuja, Nigeria in October 2023, where the question of support for counterterrorism operations in Africa will be considered in depth. Ghana will continue to actively engage in efforts to counter terrorism and violent extremism at all levels, and will contribute constructively to advance efforts to put an end to terrorism, including through the work of this Council and other relevant international organizations. I thank you, Madam President.
Thank you.